Now, if you were to imagine the rugged wilderness of Arizona's Grand Canyon Parashant National Monument, it is unlikely that you would picture the smiling facade of an 8-foot-long swamp monster. But back in the summer of 2005, our sanctuary was called upon by state authorities to deal with one such issue. What ensued is widely considered by our team to be the most newsworthy animal rescue story we've been a part of, and the legendary animal in question remains one of our most beloved residents. This is the retelling of a tale that highlights the awesome survivorship of crocodilians in the face of adversity, and the importance of not releasing any pet into the wild, especially non-native species that are illegal to own, like alligators. This is the story of Clem, the Grand Canyon alligator. The year is 2005, and homesteader Chuck Simmons decides to finally sell his 260-acre property in the far northwest reaches of Arizona to the Bureau of Land Management.
BLM had bought the Pakoon Springs land from Chuck Simmons. He'd been in his family forever, and I think it was like 272 acres, so he'd been out there, and there was a series of ponds that they made from a spring to, for their livestock and crops and things like that. And I guess back in 1986 or so, they dropped a little alligator in. A buddy of his came from an Arkansas power plant and dropped this little 16-inch alligator in one of the ponds and didn't think much about it. And he flourished in there. There were minnows in there he could eat and small frogs, things like that. And the guy who brought it out to him was a guy named Clem. Chuck would run into him over the years, and so he would like shoot a rabbit, throw it up on the bank, and every once in a while he'd go to Mesquite, Nevada, and buy some chicken and throw it up to him, and various things like this. And Clem kept on growing. Well, the water came out of that winter spring at 68 degrees, and alligators can take cold temperatures anyhow, so even though it froze up there, Clem survived. Chuck's wife got sick, and they decided that they were going to sell the land back to BLM because BLM wanted to repatriate the land because it was the only spring for miles. After they did the sale, he put in a contract, I haven't seen my alligator in a couple of years, but I want it written in the contract, you won't hurt him. Of course, BLM signed it, figuring, okay, this guy's just been out here in the sticks so long, he, little off in left field.
And of course, nobody really believed that because alligators don't live in the deserts of Arizona. So they kind of brushed it off as no big deal. They were sending some cleanup crews out there to clean the land up and clean the mess. Now, he had an old cabin that was really dilapidated. Well, apparently there was a worker that was there one morning a little early that was doing some cleanup work around one of the bodies of water. Now, he was cleaning around one of these bodies of water one day when he said he was on a tractor, and this large gator, he said to everyone, came out of the water and made an attack or a lunge at him and scared him pretty good. After that, he probably had to go back to his truck and change his shorts, but he then went back into town to the BLM and he said, you guys told me that this alligator thing was kind of a legend or a myth, that it really didn't exist.
BLM proceeded to call Game and Fish, and they got a hold of a gentleman named Hans Koenig down in Arizona Game and Fish in Tucson office. They said, you got to come trap this thing because it's part of our contract and we won't hurt them. And Hans told me, he said, we don't do trapping on big alligators. He says, you have to get Russ's group to do it, PHS. They told me what the circumstances were, and I'll be honest, I'm a doubting Thomas. Every time we get a call on an alligator, it's a muskrat, it's a soft-shelled turtle, it's some, something other than an alligator that people's mind just run wild. And we get there, and I start walking the ponds, and yeah, there's some stuff that's gone through the reeds and cattails and all that, but that could have been deer or anything. And I got to the very last pond, which was the deep pond, and I found alligator tracks. So that's when I said, yeah, you got an alligator, because the tracks are real definitive. Nothing else makes tracks like them.
BLM was concerned because this is an area now in the desert that you could horseback ride up to this body of water. You could literally drive your car up to this body of water. They did put up some signage that said, stay away from the water, alligators present. I believe we have them still posted here, actually. But again, they did it just for safety reasons, but really themselves didn't believe that it was there. They called us and they said, well, if it is an alligator, we need your help. We need to remove it, and we need to get it out of there. We put a team together. First trip, we spent a total of 7 days, and we went up there and we scouted these bodies of water. We could not find anything. We actually brought out a small aluminum boat so we could get on the water and look down to see if he was on the bottom somewhere. Some of the other ponds were very overgrown with reeds and other plant life that you literally had to cut your way through and maneuver through. And we set up traps.
We took 1,000 feet of rope because there's nothing to tie to, so we had to tie, all kinds of snares, hundreds of feet away from the ponds, and something secure enough that if an alligator went in it, that we could secure the alligator.
If the alligator were to walk through it, the cable would shrink down on the alligator and capture him. We looked during the day, we would look during the night, and we could not find anything. We saw some signs, but we couldn't find out where he was at. So we came home after about a 7-day trip, and I started thinking, how can we catch this alligator? Baby alligators, when they're young, they make a little chirping sound to call for their mother. Their mother would then come and protect them from any other predators or any other dangers. So I made a recording of baby alligators, thinking that because although baby alligators chirp for their mother, when baby alligators chirp, it means that they're away from their mother typically, and they're scared and they're looking for help. And so that call to other alligators like Clem is what we would call a dinner bell. He would eat another alligator. Alligators and crocodilian are cannibalistic.
Utilizing Dan's ingenious trick, Russ returned to Pakoon Springs with a friend to see if the recording would help in coaxing the gator out and into a snare.
Russ probably thought it was more of a camping trip than anything else, because he got to get away, no problem.
Dan had made a DVD of baby alligators chirping. We had played it that second morning. I headed off to the last 2 ponds, and Carl checked these, and when I got up there, I could see the rope was at eye level. Well, it's supposed to be on the ground.
Well, this is our second trip to Pakoon Springs, trying to find that alligator. We've got 7 snares out this time. We pulled them all, or we checked them all, except this last one.
Carl, we got a tight rope.
Russ says we got a tight rope. That means something's on the end of that snare.
So I went out and gave it a pull, nothing happened. I gave it a pull, and it pulled me back in. And I would go, okay, I got something in there. And this is in the winter pond, real shallow. You can walk into it, bunch of reeds and things like this. So I started working my way out, and you could just see this mountain of reeds. And evidently someone was over there just pawing, trying to get away.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get her help.
And call our help and get them to come out and help us get this thing out of here.
Rub down there another 20 feet, Carl. Okay, all right. What I want you to do is I want you to feet undo it.
I remember it very, very clearly. I was on call. We knew, Russ was up there, and we had set a trap, and we had to keep coming back here because we all had to work. But we were on call, and just waiting for Russ to give us the call that Clem actually took the bait and was captured.
Called Dan and Debbie back and said that there actually was an alligator, and they actually caught it. So I was, okay, this is good. Dan, excited, over the moon type thing, let's go and get an alligator. So Debbie ends up calling me, say, hey, Dan wants you to go up and get the alligator with him. I'm like, there really is an alligator. Okay, I'll be up there as soon as, when's he gonna leave? He's waiting for you to get here. Okay. She's done the same with Kale.
We actually drove through the night, and we ended up getting there the next day right when the sun was rising, and to be able to see, Pakoon Springs, all these big reeds, and there was a rope tied to this tree, and it just went straight into the reeds, and he was in there.
Do you want me to?
Team consisted of Cale Morris, Andy Reichman, Carl, Russ, and myself. I believe the second time we went up, there was 5 of us.
I'm going to try to pull him up and over. You guys need to back up. Yeah, I need you guys to back up, because if I need room to run, I'm making like Michael Jackson, guys.
And by him trying to move all night long, trying to get loose, by the time we got there late morning, he was very exhausted. So again, pulling him out didn't take a lot of manpower.
Yeah, he's out of gas. Get the tape.
We got him on out of the water. Russ got on his head. Dan got on his back. I believe Cale got on the tail. And I had the pleasure of taping Clem, but tipping his mouth closed.
Once we got him onto the ground, I remember, they got a picture of me sitting right next to him, and that was the moment where we measured him. I was really excited to know, how big he was, because we had heard a lot of stuff, a lot of measurements people were throwing out there, but nobody ever seen him really. And we measured him at 8 foot 3 inches.
Okay, somebody take the pole.
You want to get it?
We got a second too. Pull that rope out from us. Pull the rope. Got it. I didn't know if he'd be out of gas.
When we first pulled him out of the water, we estimated that his weight was about 125 pounds. He was very underweight at this point because you could see that, you could look at him now, he's a very stout animal, but literally those 2 jowls you see on the side right there, those were gone. They were very just thinned out. There was no fat in there at all. But his head was actually wider than his actual body.
He was pretty much emaciated. He's really thin. His little scoots there were really protruded extensively, because he had no meat under his flesh, under his skin there.
He was barely surviving there. He was very thin for an alligator that size, but he struggled to survive.
He's basically like a big old 8x8 pole.
That's also when we probed him. So we didn't know.
Like I said, we didn't know if it was Clem or Clementine. I checked, it was Clem, and he didn't much care for that.
Paycheck, we're loading it up.
And we got him loaded up and put him on the trailer, filled it full of carpet. We covered him with ice and water because he was stressing so bad. And he wasn't coming out of it much, so we couldn't leave until that night because it was so hot. And we got to the Hoover Dam. That was after 9/11. You couldn't go across the Hoover Dam without having an inspection. And so the DPS guy said, we got to inspect your trailer. I said, I got an alligator on it. And he goes, where'd you get that? And I said, the Arizona Strip. And he goes, which casino? He's thinking Las Vegas Strip.
We said, we have an alligator. And they're like, yeah, come on, what do you have in there? Like, no, we have an alligator. And they said, look, will you do us a favor? We want to play a little prank on our boss.
A real nice guy. So they, hey, can you look up in this loft and open the door? And there's Clem, and he's just hissing and baring his teeth and all that stuff. So they got a big kick out of that, so they let us pass. But we had a letter from the Nevada Fish and Wildlife and then Arizona Game and Fish to transport this thing. So
the media was calling, and they're like, where's this alligator? And then, of course, my wife and other staff here said, we were on our way back from Mesquite in order to bring him here to the facility.
By the time we got here, every news station in the valley was here, including Telemundo. And they were all up and down the streets wanting to do an interview because, everybody had heard about it. And we were getting calls from British Columbia and Alberta, Canada.
From New Mexico, Nevada, California, Arizona, all the nearby areas, of course.
There was already film crews here. They were like lined up waiting for their story. They were putting their cameras up into the trailer, and then they filmed us as we grabbed him and we carried him to his new home.
Had one zoo call me and said, well, when he's ready and to go, he says, we'll take him. And I said, like hell you will. I said, I spent 8 days in this miserable weather. I said, he's not going anywhere. He's staying at PHS, and there's no way he's leaving PHS, at least not while I'm alive.
You know that there's something that we always say about Clem as far as the other crocodilian. He's the one that is most likely to kill us. And it's kind of funny because I talk about how much I love him, but we have to respect him. He's big and powerful, and he doesn't act like all the other alligators. He does growl and show this aggression.
Hey.
I think that's another reason why I like him. He's got this really unique personality. He's a survivor.
He's unique because he was an alligator that was caught wild in the Arizona desert. So that story in itself is very valuable to PHS, we feel. He still gets some media attention today. It's the only alligator that was actually wild caught in the state of Arizona.
They 10 years on the 10-year anniversary, I think it was 2015, They called us up and wanted to know if we'd bring Clem back up there for they had a Pakoon Springs day, and of course he's the story about that, and they wanted to bring up. And I said no. I said, you don't understand. He's no longer a railroad tie. He's a big alligator. So you know, and by then he was probably around 350 pounds, and now he's about 550 pounds. So not loading him up, and you know, hopefully I don't have to ever move Clem because he's got a bad attitude.
That's enough. We know you're a bad boy. I think he has a special affection for both Russ and I. He would like to have us as hors d'oeuvre and dessert.
Even though he comes after me every time I go on there and I can get him to stop with a stick and everything else like that, this is just an attitude that he has, and not sure why, but you've got to remember, for 19 years before we snared him, he never saw another alligator. He has absolutely no social graces.
Hey, it's good to see you too.
This is an animal that survived someplace he should have never survived, and when he was 16 inches long and growing, everything out there was trying to eat him. So there's no way I'm giving him up. So he still doesn't like me, and I even got him a girlfriend, and he eats better than you and I do, but yeah, he's quite the character.
In here has his little girl over there. His little girl, her name is Fluffy. And occasionally we get some babies. So they have produced at least 2 times that I can remember for us right now that we have produced a few babies. Now, we produced a few babies because we wanted some very small animals.
Some of the baby alligators are in our education program. We always have a small alligator to have in our hands-on program for the kids and things like that.
Additionally, Clem's lineage lives on through education and display animals that we have gifted or given on loan to other facilities.
So as far as Clem goes, and you know the value he brings to PHS, I mean, this is, people come on tours, they see news articles, they read things about him, and they're like, yeah, we heard about this, you know, alligator. So it helps us to draw individuals to come and visit and see him. So, you know, coming to see our facility, doing a tour of our facility is a way of us to obviously generate income, so all these animals can be fed.
I think Clem's capture is the most noteworthy thing that we have ever seen here. It's just the most unique. It's actually hard to believe. It's my favorite story.
He would have not have made another year had we not trapped him. He would have died. So, but I gotta admit, you know, out of all the alligators, he's my favorite. You know, the idea of how he's successfully survived is mind-boggling, to be honest with you. So, like I said, when you're looking at these creatures, you're looking at a dinosaur.
Thank you for listening to Clem's Tale. Our facility is home to over 1,500 animals, all of which have unique stories of how they came to PHS. There are many ways to help us in our mission to save animal lives, like attending a tour or making a donation. However, one of the easiest ways is to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for more videos. Thanks to viewers like you, our facility has the largest YouTube channel of any zoo in Arizona, and we are always growing. Thank you for your support. Watch these videos to learn more about the incredible work that our facility does with our crocodilian residents, like Clem.